Well, is Ghana's development really centered on industrialization? Why are we bent on setting up new factories when our existing ones are broken? Do our existing industries meet international standards? In the studio with me to help us answer some of these questions and more is Korte Papafioshi's Chief Executive Officer of Reroy Cables, an indigenous cable manufacturing company, emerged winner of 2017 Energy Personality of the Year Award, the female category in Accra, and currently she's the only woman in Ghana, perhaps from the sub-region in cable manufacturing. So it's a real pleasure to have you in the studio this morning. Let's just follow up with this story filed by my colleague Maxwell Agbagba on the starch factory, and you were commenting on the woman peeling cassava.
It's quite interesting because woman peeling cassava, yes, but at the end of the day, you look at technology these days, her strength. How long is she going to support peeling cassava for a whole industry? I would say that it's difficult because you can't, this day and age, you cannot peel cassava for an industry like that.
Let's talk about how companies such as yours in industry, how have you been sustaining yourself, and a whole nation cannot sustain the few that we have?
Well, I would say that with, it's interesting for you to ask this because having an industry is a very difficult area. But at the same time, it's interesting because it's the passion that you have for it. And thinking of job creation, it goes a long way. Now, it's not, in industry such as the cable manufacturing, it's a very tough industry because you are dealing with the giants out there who has the technology, who knows exactly what they want, and they have the means of it. Some of us in this part of the world, it's difficult because even to get the raw materials in, thank God now we have the bauxite, but we don't have copper yet. But it comes to a whole supply chain. It's quite difficult. I mean, looking at it starting from the scratch, it's a very difficult one. But not regarding that, I think we should just go ahead and expand and add value to what.
So what do we do to the existing ones that we have as a nation?
As a nation, I think we should actually look at the existing ones. Why have we had it all this time and not adding value? I think what we need basically is to vamp the existing industries. Make sure that it's going to sustain for the next years to come, and actually entrust it in the private sector's hand. I think when it comes to government, it's good, but it's like, it's always the government, but it's me and you. It's ours. The nation is ours. We have to make sure that what we have, we sustain it.
With your experience in this particular industry, are private people interested in managing, for instance, the starch factory?
Oh, yes. I would say that private people are interested to managing the starch factory because out there, they have all the machines to extract. I mean, you won't see a lady sitting down with you have all the machines to extract. And they also have the means of technology. So I think the processes itself is what we need to look at. And then also how we're going to inject in human capital, training, for us to make sure that if we are to put in our strength and our efforts, the years to come will sustain it. Because it's been there for years. And seriously, it hasn't been really working out the way we were expecting it to work out.
The area specific where you are, it's a very special area.
Yes.
And it's interesting that you've survived all these years since, what, 1992?
Yes, that's right.
How have you managed it?
I would say that...
Also talking about the fact that in Ghana, you're the only female at least.
Yes. Well, I would say that not only in Ghana, but in the sub-region, female in the industry of power cable making. It's actually a very difficult area. But you should have the passion for it. And every industry, the best is for you to start from a very small beginning, which some of us actually did start from a very small beginning. It's quite challenging coming to think of it when you think about the world industry. It's like you need to be giant. No. Start from your very small corner. Probably you can even start with a bolt and nuts. You can start by adding value in terms of what you can do in the industry of where I am. The cable industry, there are so many areas, labels, simple things that one can actually even supply to the industry that will make us more efficient. In terms of delays, it shouldn't be. Because once you need your raw materials, you have it available. So what we need is actually a teamwork, which I think my team is actually doing very well in terms of the support they are giving to us in the factory.
Yeah, but there's also a tough one to deal with, China, because we have a lot of cables on the market now. We've seen how the Standards Authority has been talking about the fact that the cables made in Ghana they actually meet the standards, but those on the market don't. So how do you fight off a whole giant such as China?
I mean, this is actually, I'm glad you've touched on the knob. This is it. I mean, we are looking at, we have our climate, we know exactly what we want, we know exactly what we need. Now, most people, maybe they think about the pocket, but not only the pocket, not only the profit that you make, but also it's a long-term investment. Coming to think of it, when you buy it locally, you know that if there is any problem at all, you know where to go to. You know that we are just next door. We are partners, actually. So we would like to partner our own and grow our own. And I will say that before, some of us are exporting now. Before you even import, think whether you can get us to produce it locally for you.
Now, last week, Information Minister Designate Kojo Nkrumah revealed that 18 factories have been accredited so far, and an additional 50 are expected to be accredited before the end of this year, to bring to almost 70 the One District, One Factory projects before the end of the year 2018. Here is his explanation.
Sometimes we come across people who make the argument that the MPP said it will build factories in all of these districts, but our manifesto commitment is clear for the avoidance of doubt. It must be stated that government has not said that it will, or the state will build these factories on its own. We have insisted consistently that we will work with the private sector, we'll collaborate with the private sector, we'll facilitate the work of the private sector in building these factories. This is a quick status report. As I speak to you this morning, 18 factories have been accredited so far, and a good number of them have been visited by President Akufo-Addo. An additional 50 are expected to be accredited before the end of this year. And this should bring to almost 70 the 1D, 1F projects by the end of this year, 2018. Now, the One District, One Factory initiative has already seen, as part of government's facilitation efforts, has already seen about 10 financial institutions committing close to about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis in loanable funds to prospective venture capitalists. And there's a quick breakdown of some of the facilitation that has been aided by government so far. Ghana Commercial Bank, about 1 billion Ghana cedis. Universal Merchant Bank, about 440 million Ghana cedis. The United Bank for Africa, about 880 million Ghana cedis. ADB, about 200 million Ghana cedis. Exim Bank, about 1.7 billion Ghana cedis. EcoBank, about 150 million Ghana cedis. So as I mentioned, so far about 18 accredited so far. We expect to do about 50 more before the end of the year, and that should bring us to about 70 accredited before the end of this year. That's a quick status update on the 1D, 1F program.
Let's continue this conversation. And I want to ask you, these are factories that are being set up with a lot of governmental support. How do you get yourself ready to compete with this? Can you even compete?
Oh, yes. When it comes to competition, I would say that yes, because with the experience, I mean, the experience as master is always experience. Some of us have been in the industries for a while. which I think in a way is good. But we also need a support to even find it to the next stage in terms of how we can actually even bring these industries up again and train them. Because we have the experience. We know the do's and the don'ts and the know-how. With these factories, we need to actually work as a team, and then the existing factories need to also be vamped.
Do you get any support? Is there any local support that you get?
Oh, well, when it comes to support, I think in the area it's quite difficult because, I mean, of course, I mean, we are always looking at the rates and all that, but also there is available support in terms of technology that you can always find on. Yes.
So what are the peculiar challenges with your industry?
Well, I would say that in our industries, it's always like bringing in raw materials is always a problem. I mean, nowadays with the imports of raw materials, I mean, in industries such as us, we are a free zone company. We export almost, I would say that basically 100% of our products, which is basically goes out. But then at the same time, we need to also sell locally 30%, which that 30% we are competing with the cheaper imports from outside, which makes it very, very difficult. So basically, you tend to be looking out all the time.
So are you able to meet that 30%?
Well, I would say that yes. But then I'm talking about 70% exports, which is quite good. But we are even looking at why not 100% exports?
Okay, what will make you get to that level?
What we need is support to actually expand our scope, because these days the world is moving very fast with different materials. The question is, are we getting the enough support? When the support is there, we have to tap in and make sure that our people will capitalize on the training and the machines that we have.
So when you talk about support, a lot of us will quickly go to financial support.
That's a thing. I mean, in fact, it's quite interesting because when you look at it, some of us, it's like even the supplies that we've supplied, it's taking so long for you to be paid. So it makes your work quite difficult because it's the same investment that you are investing. So what we need is a support that would give us at least a single digits interest rates that will say that, well, things that you've supplied over, some of them over 6 years that you have not been paid, which is very, very difficult when it comes to the industries, because we know that it's tough everywhere. But at the same time, we need the support that our finances will be released so that we can capitalize on our industries and grow it.
We've been talking about industrialization and expansion, perhaps also because we have a big challenge, which is unemployment. Can the industry take all these new people that we're hoping to rope in? Let's look at the Nation Builders Corps. We have 100,000, government says, young people who have graduated today. How many of them can industry take?
This is interesting. We need more. I would say that we need more women in the industry. For instance, I'm saying that in my industry, I mean, if we talk about the only female in the industry of cable making, it makes it quite difficult. But we can take them and train them, because the industry, basically, we import everything, including even bulbs. We are talking about switches. We are talking about, I mean, various areas of power sector. So in the industry, what we need, I think, is for us to really train the young ones that are coming, for them to take up that why import if we can actually even assemble them here, by starting by even just bolts and nuts. We should all look at a comprehensive industrial need in terms of you cannot import only one item. You need a complete supply chain. So the marketing aspect of it, the quality control, the manufacturing itself, I mean, how we can cut across completely. So I think that we can actually employ them, but also there has to be discipline, because that's the key. Attention to details and time factor. Let them know that employment is there, but you have to be specific and smart and take up the challenge, because it's an opportunity given to us. We have to take it up. If we are looking at it, once you start, you go, we are talking about the 16 ECOWAS countries, so we are not even looking at only Ghana. So we are looking at the export country as well. So let's look around us and let's take the opportunity that we've been given.
So you're interested in women and you want to see a lot of women in your industry. You don't want to be alone any longer. But people would tell you that employing women would also come with some compromises. There are things that you have to do in order to make women comfortable. In fact, do you believe in that? Is that true?
I do believe absolutely in that. There are things that you have to do. Well, I will say that, I mean, quite recently, I was just thinking, it's like, listen, how many industries actually will say that they have nursery when it comes to that? Because you know that at the end of the day, once you employ more women, I mean, some of them will go on maternity leave, some of them will just... Have we actually thought about industries specifically to say that we have a nursery for nursery mothers? You know, instead of the person to actually be away for maybe 6 months, 3 months, I mean, in my industry, that's what happens. I'm thinking of why don't we just even start looking at putting up nursery in various institutions.
That's something that as CEO of Rero, you are ready to invest in.
I'm ready to invest in.
We've also been talking about extending the 3 months maternity leave to 6 months. I mean, it's a conversation that's sadly beginning. Is that something that, as CEO, you're hoping to also think about?
I think it's quite good. It's good for us to look at it in terms of expanding to 6 months. But then, most of the times, most women, when they are home, they feel so bored. After having the baby, they feel so bored. So some of them can say that, well, after 1 month, I would like to come to work. Why not? Once he knows that, well, at every 2 hours interval or every 3 hours interval, I can just go to the nursery to feed my baby. Of course, yes, she'll be more than happy to be at work. So some of the areas I think we are more than happy to actually invest in. So also train more women to be in the industries of men-dominated.
You're a cable producer. You work with a lot of power, so I have to ask you a power question, an energy question. Yes. Industry and energy. I mean, it works hand in hand.
Yes.
Where are we with it? Because I think that some time back there used to be a lot of complaints. Power is still expensive. In terms of electricity, is still expensive. So how do you manage through?
Well, I would say that power, well, even though we've gotten some relief, we still need more. Because what it is that once we look at, I mean, you cannot manufacture without power. We need the power. But also, we have to make sure that we are using it to the benefits, not only television, not only, I mean, movies, but also using it to produce for more job creation.
Is the energy sector, do you think, from where you sit, is it stable enough to support industry?
Yes, to support industries, yes. Because, I mean, when you look at it now, I would say that we haven't had any problem, except the tariffs are a bit high when you look at industries.
Okay, so the problem now is costs.
The costs. That is where the problem is now.
But you're satisfied with stability?
Oh, I think so. I think so. Stability is far, far, far better, a lot better. So what we need now is cost. Looking at the industries to cushion us so that we can produce more.
Are there ideas that you play with in terms of what to do to bring the cost down?
Well, basically, I would say that if some of us, as we're saying, in terms of support, and we are saying that, well, if you are producing, especially being the only lady in the industry, you don't have to pay any power. We want to cushion you more to do more. And then that actually will also be encouraging.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
But if you have 5, 10 more ladies in your field?
Well, what we need basically is say that, well, the targets. When you get to a certain point in time, we would say that, well, if you are employing up to a certain number of people, you're going to get this relief, you're going to get that relief. That will actually will urge us more. So I would say that we are looking at it in terms of setting up and say that, well, if you're employing from about 100 going, you are going to get this relief, or even 50. Just cut so that industries, all of us, will be happy to actually employ more people because we know that we'll get a relief from them.
How many people do you employ now?
At the moment, I'm employing about 168.
Okay. Is there room for more?
Oh, there's room for more because basically this 168 are just in-house. And some of them are casuals. But we are looking at expanding the scope in terms of training more women in the industry. Let them take up the power sector because why import most of the things? So that's the area we are looking at.
When you say expanding supply, where are you looking at supply?
In terms of the sub-region, we are looking at the sub-region. We are looking at the industries like Greco, like ECG. We are looking at NEDCO. We are looking at VRA. I mean, we are looking at our own within and also the sub-region. What we need, instead of them looking at, we would like them to look at us first and say that, well, listen, are you ready? In the next 2 years, this is what the area we want to go. We want to change all the lines. We want to give you the tax. Prepare yourself, get production in, make sure that in the next 2 years, this is our program that will all work as a team.
All these people that you mentioned, are they people who do business with you?
Yes, they do business with us.
Okay.
But most
but
of
you
the
Oliver Twist, you want more, you want the bigger...
We want the bigger shares. We want the bigger more. We want to plan with them to work as a team. Let them give us their focus and say that, well, we want to change all the lines. This is what we want to add on. So is there a way of expanding our businesses, our factories, to really take up their plan?
But do you have the capacity? If they came to you for that today,
oh, yes.
would you be able to meet it?
Yes, we will be able to meet it, because I would say that we will be looking at how we're going to also look at support in terms of their needs from elsewhere, those who have done it. How are we also going to be there? So we'll be looking at how best we can work together as a team to sustain the work and the country.
Is the industry like a friendly place? Do you talk to each other, or it's strictly competition?
Oh, well, you know, the industry is quite vast. And I will say that we talk to each other. We actually talk to each other. We work as a team. But this is where more teamwork in terms of team, we are talking about nitty-gritty, sitting down, thinking about the scope for the next 5 years, what the industry will need for us to support. For us to actually also plan in terms of even acquisition of machines. Once we know what their plan is, we will be able to also help to grow the economy.
My guest is a founder of Reroy Cable, started back in 1992 and has grown into where it is today, employing so many, and they've got a greater vision ahead. I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. Kate Korte Papafio. Hopefully in the coming years, you will not be alone in the industry as a woman.
Amen.